Good evening, and thank you for joining us for community conversation as part of our Day of Understanding. This session is co-sponsored by the Office of Alumni and Parent Engagement, and we thank them for providing technical support. My name is Kevin Martins, and I serve as Assistant Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. For anyone who was unable to join any part of today's earlier sessions, today's events were created to advance understanding in our pursuit of creating a more inclusive university. I don't think anyone doubts the value of Bryant and its education. The university has increased its regional and national profile over the past 2 decades, producing leaders who are well prepared to start and lead meaningful careers. Many alumni speak fondly about their time at Bryant and often highlight the faculty, staff, and friends who made it special. But no university is perfect, and Bryant at times has fallen short of its promise to students. Just last year, Bryant was both in local and national media for incidents of racism on campus. If we are honestly seeking to make this a more inclusive environment, we cannot shy away from dealing with these issues. And further, we must admit that they are not new. Tonight, I am joined by Bryant University's 9th president, Dr. Ross Gattell, a distinguished economist and economic development expert and former chancellor of the Community College System of New Hampshire. President Gattell has an extensive background in university teaching, strategic planning, and management. He holds a PhD in public policy from Harvard University, a master's in business administration from the University of California, Berkeley, and a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Chicago. And we welcome Ross Gattell. I can't see you yet. There you are. How's it going? President Gattell and I are both joined by 3 alumni who I will introduce shortly. Tonight's discussion is meant to explore the experiences of the panelists during their time at the university. While their stories are unique to them, generations of Bryant alumni share similar experiences. In the interest of time, I will now briefly introduce them, but I apologize, these bios do not properly do them justice. Rita Williams-Bogar is the president and CEO of Personal Development Solutions, LLC, and PDS Institute, LLC. Rita has a long-standing history of service to the university. She is a dynamic speaker and expert facilitator, provides consultative services to businesses and individuals in the area of leadership development, emotional intelligence, ethics, diversity, and insurance education. Rita has been recognized by NJBiz as one of New Jersey's 2011's Best 50 Women in Business, and by the U.S. Small Business Administration as the 2011 Region 2 Minority Small Business Champion of the Year. She is a contributing author to the 2012 book, Big Bold Business Advice. The Alumni Association awarded Rita with the Gulski Service Award in 2015. She has also been a frequent contributor to the Alumni webinar series on topics related to communications, business ethics, and leading high-performance teams. Of course, it's also important to mention that Rita also serves as president of the Bryant University National Alumni Council and is a member of the Bryant University Board of Trustees, who chairs the newly formed Board Committee on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We welcome you to the panel, Rita.
Thank you.
Chanel Anthony is the Executive Territory Manager at Medtronic. Originally from DC, Chanel graduated from Bryant with his degree in marketing in 2002 and his MBA in 2003. After graduating from Bryant, Chanel joined AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals and continued his passion for activism by being elected to 4 consecutive terms as an advisory neighborhood commissioner. Chanel was recognized for his many sales achievements as commissioner. He represented his constituents as a liaison to the Washington, D.C. government, addressing issues such as economic development, crime prevention, and building stronger neighborhoods through engagement. In 2013, Chanel joined Medtronic as a territory manager and continued to display strong leadership skills, consistently exceeding his sales goal and ranking #1 in the company in various divisions. Chanel attributes his success to lessons that he learned at Bryant in and out of the classroom. Lessons such as how to balance rigorous academics while playing football and actively participating in organizations such as the Multicultural Student Union. Welcome to the panel, Chanel.
Thank you, Kevin.
And last but not least, Aliana Soto is currently a community relations and education manager in rare blood disorders for Sanofi Genzyme. She provides education, patient services, and patient service support and advocacy initiatives to the hemophilia community in New York State. Prior to this role, she worked at Ernst & Young as a technology implementation consultant at JP Morgan as vice president, leading the business analysis and quality assurance teams for the Escrow Technology Group. That's a mouthful. And Lehman Brothers, where she was involved in developing innovative systems to grow the capital market sales business. Aliana studied finance and communication at Bryant, and she received her Master's of Science from NYU in Management and Systems with a focus on strategy and leadership. Throughout her professional career, she has always been involved in various nonprofits, giving back through volunteering, fundraising, or board service. Aliana is a born and raised New Yorker and very proud, spending her free time focusing on self-care, college touring with her niece, who's a senior in high school, and being an aunt and kidney donor are what make her proud every day. Welcome to the panel, Aliana. All right. And that was the short version of their bios, everyone. So thank you all for joining the panel. It's a privilege to have you here with us. President Gattel and I were very enthusiastically waiting for an opportunity to engage with alumni who he hasn't really met yet, but I've had the privilege of meeting and speaking with. The overview of the panel is fairly simple. We are going to just ask a few questions, and we want folks to honestly engage with any of the questions that we have, and we want you to take your time because we want this to be impactful. We want the audience, of which consists of alumni, faculty, and staff, and current students, to really get a sense of your experience at the university and your thoughts on where we can take it from this point on. So I'll start by asking each of you, and Rita, if you will, I'll ask you to start, to describe your overall experience while you were at Bryant, and then please discuss any challenges related to diversity, equity, and inclusion during your time.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you everybody who's participating by viewing this streaming. It's an honor to be able to share our experiences with the broader community. And I'm thrilled to be with my co-panelists here. This is a great opportunity. So my experiences at Bryant. I'll set the stage briefly by mentioning that I went to high school in Montclair, New Jersey, which is a very progressive, multicultural community. My high school was a population of 2,400 students, 1/3 African-American, 1/3 white, 1/3 everybody else. So we were a true reflection of a melting pot. So I'm in high school and I'm thinking about colleges, and I learned about this college in Rhode Island called Bryant. I'm the eldest, so I needed to get far enough away from home to cut the apron strings, but not so far that I couldn't get back home. And first generation on top of it all. And so Bryant had a student population of about 2,400 at that time as well. Came up to campus, took a tour. There were no students on site at the time that I took a tour. Keep in mind, my frame of reference is Montclair High. Same size body, but very, very diverse in population. Day one of Bryant, I realized I'm one of maybe I saw 3 other Black students moving in onto campus at the Smithfield campus at that time. So for me, it was culture shock. Whoa, I grew up in the city of Newark. I go to high school in a very diverse community, and now I'm the fly in the ointment, so to speak. Day one, I met my best friend on this planet, Allison Banks Moore, and we've been friends ever since then. During my time at Bryant, I was one of 24 students of color, actually African-American, 24 African-American students in the population of 2,400. So some of my experiences were very positive. I stayed because I wanted the education that Bryant afforded me, and I've done a lot in my life as a result of the education. And not only the academic education, but the social education. There were a lot of students on campus when I was there who had no problem at all expressing their racial attitudes, their racist attitudes publicly. The radio station would broadcast songs, and since you all know when I graduated, Barry White and groups from the 70s, okay, good times. And somebody called the station and said, "Why are you playing that nigga music? We don't want to be hearing that." And this was the norm at Bryant at the time. And so that's why I say there was another education I received. I decided to stay at Bryant because I figured this was going to be the caliber of what my corporate work life was going to be like. If these are the people I'm living with, I can translate what I'm learning from that experience into my day-to-day life. And boy, was that an experience as a mirror, a reflection of what it would be like. I made great friends at Bryant. I started coming into myself at Bryant. I was extremely shy as a student. Got over that after my freshman year by hanging out with people who weren't shy and learning how not to be shy. Bryant helped me to learn how to be independent. I was involved in the Black Student Organization, which at the time was called Wantu Wazuri, which in Swahili meant beautiful people. And during my, I think, senior year, I was president of the Black Student Organization. I ran for student senate too. Didn't win, but I figured, all right, let me try this and see how it's going to go. My classes were all good. My BFF, on the other hand, she had a professor who told her that women didn't belong in business. And again, we're going back to the 70s. I don't see that happening today. So issues with diversity, equity, and inclusion had a lot to do with race, followed by gender. Because when you see me, you see my color first, you see my gender. Well, you can't separate one from the other. And there were some students who, it didn't matter. We were just people. We were all students who didn't have any money and were trying to work and get our education so we could build a better life. And I'll stop there to give the others a chance to answer the question as well.
Thank you. Chanel, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I don't know how I can follow Rita, but I'll try. So first, good evening to everyone watching and my co-panelists, Rita and Aliana, who I work with on the National Alumni Council. Thank you, Kevin, for this opportunity. President Cattell, thank you for this opportunity because this has been the impetus has been what's been happening socially, but your leadership is what drove this. So thank you for allowing us this opportunity. So let's, much like Rita, let's set the stage, right? I graduated high school in June of 1998, born and raised in Washington, D.C., right? So D.C. is multicultural. I mean, we have the president, and we also have homeless people right across the street from the White House, right? So it's the perfect dichotomy. You see it all. I attended an all-boy Catholic, all-male Catholic high school, well known, and it was pretty diverse, so I thought. And I found out about the school by the name of Bryant in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and I had never been to Rhode Island, but something about the campus and just, frankly, the history attracted me to the school. It was strange. I joked that I had two choices between Morehouse, which is a historically Black college, and Bryant, historically white college, if you will. And somehow I chose Bryant. And my experience with Bryant, I always say, was softened by the fact that my high school classmate went to Bryant together. We went there together. We were roommates, right? So we had our own pod, which helped a lot. But take us back to 1998, right? What happened in 1998? The Broncos beat the Packers in the Super Bowl. Michael Jordan won his sixth championship by beating Utah Jazz. Everyone probably watched The Last Dance over the break, so everyone remembers that, right? Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, right? But what really resonated with me from 1998 was the murder of James Byrd. So some of you may not remember who James Byrd was, but Black guy in Texas. I'm 18 years old, and I remember this primarily because Dennis Rodman, after he won the championship, paid for his funeral. But he was a Black guy in Texas who was somehow got caught up with these 3 white supremacists. They hooked him up to the back of his pickup truck and drug him 3 miles and left his severed head and arm body in front of a church. They were the first white men to ever be to face capital punishment for killing of a Black man in Texas. So that was in the back of my head in June of 1998. And now I'm going to Rhode Island, right? My parents are concerned, I'm concerned, but I had my football family. So I felt safe in that regard. It was a complete experience, completely new experience to me until December 13th, 1998, right? Prior to that, there'd been some issues on campus with, everyone knows the rotunda and knows the couch in the rotunda. The football team got to school early. So by early, I mean in July, August. So in between practice, we would lounge on the couch that's in the middle of the rotunda. Well, when school started, unbeknownst to us, that's where sororities would sit. So when school starts, we're sitting there, sororities are there, they're wondering, what are you all doing in our space? And I'll never forget the sorority young lady said to me, "What are you doing on our couch? You don't even belong here. My dad pays your tuition." Right? You're 18 years old. What? Like, I just want to have fun, right? It's college. So somehow I got the wit to respond and say, well, I guess I'll see you at Thanksgiving because my dad pays my tuition. So if your dad pays my tuition, we must be related. And it was that kind of craziness that you dealt with that were just little jabs, right? I mean, let's put it all out on the table. That's why we're having this conversation. You took a historically white university and you literally bought 50 to 60 Black guys and dropped them in the middle of this campus. Like, you would notice us if you dropped 50 to 60 Black guys anywhere, right? So can you imagine the shock that did to campus? The impact it had on the teachers, the student life, just across the board. So on December 13th, 1998, I think it really came. I consider my Bryant life pre-December 13th, 1998 and post-December 13th, 98. On December 13th, 1998, it was quiet hours. We were studying for finals, and we hear a ruckus that some of our football players are getting beat up by some frats at Hall 2 or Hall 3. That's where the fraternity halls were back then. And we get over there, and we get a fight. And it was all out. The best way I described it was a book I read in high school was Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. It was dark, it was open, and it was just pure chaos. I had never been called the N-word so many times in my life during that incident. I mean, it like we weren't college students anymore. We were fighting for survival. And this was right on campus. After that incident, that was a Saturday night. Some of our football players were hurt. Some of the frat people were hurt. People were arrested. I happened to have one last final. I took that final Monday and called my parents and said, "Hey, I think I want to come home." Well, we were scheduled to come home anyway. So I came home, and I get a call from the DPS that says I have a warrant for my arrest because of what took place. And it forever changed my life. And it changed my life in a good way because I remember thinking, I'm never going back to that school again. I'm done with Rhode Island. I'm done with Bryant. And my dad said, no, you're not going to get you. It happened the way you said your name. And, sorry to do this, Kevin, but so I just found this today, right? It's scheduled. It's written February 10th, 1999. And it says, "Dear Chanel, I'm writing to inform you that a result of the hearing held on February 9th, 1999, you have been suspended, but you will be allowed back on campus and will be placed on disciplinary probation for the fall semester of 1999. So as a result of what happened, I was suspended. Who gets suspended in college? So I was suspended from to start the second semester. I didn't start the semester until February. I missed the whole month of school, but my name was cleared. I got back on campus. I was on the dean's list that year. And from that point on, I differently. I knew I was little more responsible for my actions. And we're going to talk about this later on, but Bryant isn't in a bubble. What's happening in Bryant is what's happening in society. If a George Floyd incident happened at Bryant, if a George Floyd incident happened in the world, that means that's what's going to happen at Bryant. The James Byrd incident was just a lot more egregious than what happened at Bryant, but Bryant is a microcosm of society. So however society is going to act, or however kind society is going to be, that's how Bryant's going to be. So that was my experience at Bryant. But I'll say this, and I will talk about this later. I feel so much better that it's not the school pre-December 13th, 1998. Kevin said it best. We got a lot of work to do. And Ross, this is my kudos to you that we're actually addressing this, right? In my bio, you heard it. I said, Bryant prepared me for things in the classroom and then outside the classroom. And much like Rita, the outside the classroom was far more important. And it was that experience that I'm referring to. So I know that was a mouthful, but Aliana, you're next.
Oh, and let me just briefly say before Aliana starts, thank you. There was a little bit of internet glitching in between there, but I think your overall message was heard. I was able to follow you, and I believe the other panelists were. But thank you for sharing. Aliana, same question. Can you describe your overall experience and any challenges?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So when I got to Bryant in 2000, the internet was not that big, so I did not know about Chanel's incident on campus. It wasn't public information. I wanted to go to a safe school, similar to Rita. You guys can hear the ambulance every time I unmute myself when they start. I'm in New York City, I love it. When I wanted to go away, but not too far. If I needed to get home, then I needed to get home from my siblings and my family. So that was important to me. So when I got there, we were, I think they call it 4 Mile now, where a lot of the international and students that identify as diverse students of color, we get to campus early, get to pick what side of the room we want and get settled. And that was my core group, and I volunteered for that or worked for it. I think you got paid for it every year. And that's how each of us every year kind of supported each other and stuck together. It didn't matter what year you were. And so there was just a group of us. So that was my group. That's still my group of people. That's still my tribe. And then, of course, the football guys were there as well. So we all really got to connect in our own space, in our own bubble. A lot of what was, I'm going to try not to repeat what was already said and have different experiences, but I'm from Queens. Queens is one of the most diverse places on the planet, 138 languages spoken. So I celebrated a lot of things. Just in schools with my teachers and the communities that I lived in. So I was very well aware what I was getting into when I went to Bryant, but I'm from New York City. So I thought, yeah, this is nothing. It's kind of like going on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Like, I get it. But it wasn't, there was still the N-word being written on people's doors. It was still yelled out of windows when you were walking at night, coming from a party. And it's uncomfortable, because in being from New York City, if someone's yelling out the window, someone's going to throw a bottle at you next. Someone's coming to attack you, right? So not to say that that's what was happening, but that's how you feel. You're in a constant state of shock. You're in a constant state of, this is supposed to be a safe campus, but I really can't walk around here by myself. It's scary, right? Who's sitting outside my door that's going to write something on my door in the middle of the night that is derogatory? Who does that, right? It's just, you don't feel safe. And even though it was safe, you don't feel safe, right? Nothing physically happened, but a lot of that trauma is, it affects you and your ability to be your best self and be able to bring your best self to class when you hear either happening to you or happening to your friends, people being accused of things that they didn't do, and you were with them. My freshman year roommate almost reported me because she was jealous that I had honor roll and she didn't think I deserved it. How did I get honor roll? And I'm like, because I'm smart. The same way you got here, I got here. And she couldn't fathom that. Like, that was just like, what do you mean? You're hardly here. I said, yeah, well, I study in the library. I'm not someone who studies in my room. She's like, yeah, but you never study. And it was just, why do I need to defend myself? Being accused of plagiarism without actually any proof of plagiarism, knowing that I was there in the library with my friends working on my work by teachers, having to defend people of color in classrooms because there's this sense that we all here are on scholarship. We all are from single parent homes. We all live in the projects. We're all low income. And, we feed the system. And it's just like, why are you saying this in a classroom? And and constantly just defending the people around me, defending myself the same way I was defending myself walking through campus, defending myself to my college roommate. It was constant. And so you just stay in your bubble. And similar to Chanel and Rita, you know, I was involved in what is now MSU. I did a lot of this stuff. I didn't allow everybody else's ignorance to get in the way of what I needed to do. I come from a background of social justice, so this is nothing new to me. But my parents didn't necessarily prepare me like, hey, this might happen. But I knew that I wanted to go to Bryant. I was very clear that I wanted to go to Bryant, and I wasn't going to allow some of everybody else's opinions, assumptions get in the way of what I knew about myself. I'm thankful that I was very confident in myself, because there were many times where I wanted to leave. And I could leave. I had the grades to leave. I could have went anywhere. I wasn't on a scholarship. So I wasn't tied to the school. And unfortunately, that's how you're made to feel. There were a few incidents with professors there that were very uncomfortable to experience, where they were verbally attacked by students in classrooms because they had opinions about diversity or a topic that, you know, and it was just such a sense of disrespect constantly. And then you start to think, is this the same person that yelled out the window at me at night? Is this the same person that wrote, like, look at him talking to this teacher this way because he didn't get his way, or he didn't get the grade he wanted, or he didn't present his public speech properly. And the privilege, it was just reeks of privilege is the right word. I survived. I got through it. I'm proud of myself for that. You know, a lot of the people that surrounded me looked like me. So when people say, we all know that Bryant is a primarily white institution, but if you look at all of my photos from college on my, you know, disposable camera, we still had those back then, you would see all people of color, because that was my tribe, that was my safe space. So when you asked us the question about what types of supports were in place, that was it. You know, my people that were in my class with me. Granted, when, you know, you start to go into different majors and you have to you're the only one in your class. But when that was all over, it was just us constantly. We spent a lot of time together. And so many people talk about my college experience being so different and not having that relationship with their college friends like I do. And I think it was because we were in survival mode and we knew we needed each other in order to survive. And we were responsible to each other to make sure we all got out of there together. So I'll leave it at that. And we can move on.
Thank you, Eliana, Rita, Chanel. I did want to just mention that, Chanel, I know that when you came on campus, that was the start of the football program, correct? So there was no football team before then. Okay.
Nope, yep.
So I think that's
Go ahead.
No, just mentioning that's an important piece of the context when you say you bring 50 Black guys and you stand out anywhere. I don't know that folks would know that was the start of the football program. So it really was an influx of diversity to campus in a way that probably hadn't been seen in a while. I want to give President Gattel a few minutes here to jump in and reflect on anything that was just mentioned.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Kevin, for organizing this conversation, and Rita, Aliana, and Chanel for sharing their experience. And I'm sorry, I apologize for the experiences they had, and what I heard was experiences we truly hope that none of our students come anywhere close to experiencing that. But we have to be understanding that we have to be aware that the possibilities exist, so we have to act accordingly. And then that's really important. I mean, what I heard from all of you is your incredible strength and how the experience built resilience and character and helped you to be successful in a world that was very similar to Bryant was at the time. What we're trying to do here is really, sort of model behavior that we want the world to practice in a more positive way to support inclusion and increase opportunity for everybody, and to create a strong community here where people could learn from each other and learn from diversity and appreciate diversity and experience, what it could mean and add to life. I share something with all three of you. I'm from areas in the Northeast. I grew up in Queens also, Aliana, and I look back fondly on that experience because, you're kind of thrown into a diverse culture and you sort of assume the whole world is like that. And you come to other places and it's not like that. And there's some people, unfortunately, at times when you were here, Brian, and now for our students, it's really unfortunate in many respects that they come from areas where they're not exposed to diversity. And so when they come here, it's not because they're bad people or they're acting in a way that's aggressive against others. They just, in many respects, they don't know better, and they're, they don't know how to respond. They don't know how to react, and so they respond in ways that are very negative for themselves and negative for the community. And we want to be able to have conversations where early on in their students' exposure to Bryant, they get exposed to people of different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives, and see that they can learn from that perspective and not be disturbed by it, not feel challenged by it, not feel, what I heard from Aliana and Chanel about, it's like it's you against me, it's this is my couch, you shouldn't be here because you're taken away from me, as opposed to we're better off that we're a more diverse campus, and we're all better off, and that adds to our experience. And hey, when they get out there in the professional world, the professional world is a lot more diverse, and you have to be effective in that context. We've heard throughout the day today, the day of understanding is, how a more diverse, inclusive workplace organization has better results. It's more creative, more innovative, and better results. And, my experience, I know I wasn't asked the question, but what's been my experience in 4 months at Bryant? My experience is there's a real passion and interest on this campus for doing things better with regards to inclusion. People are open to these conversations, and Rita knows that, and Rita is one of the leaders on the board. The board is very supportive of these types of conversations, and establishing a board committee that Rita will chair on diversity, equity, inclusion, and Kevin will staff that committee and work directly with me on that committee and the trustees' involvement on these issues. And I think there's a keen understanding that we could do things better. And it's a real opportunity to improve, the type of education and experience that we provide to our students. So sort of my comment here is that what I'm observing is we're at a good point in our university, especially when we hear every day, read in the papers, see ourselves what's happening in the outside world. And our concern is sort of how do we get in a better place? And in our small community of about 3,500 here in Bryant, we're going to work really hard to get in a better place where people respect each other, work together, and realize the diversity and people with differences and working together with those differences and appreciate those differences put us in a better place. And that's not easy, particularly for our students who come from much, much less diverse backgrounds. But I really feel as I complete my 4th month that we have the opportunity to do that. And I agree totally with Kevin and his opening here. We have a long way to go, but we're committed, and we want to continue to try to make progress working with people like yourself. So I appreciate your comments. I learned a lot, and I would like to hear from more alums about their experiences. We're still a rather small group here, but I'd like to learn about the experience, and also from more recent alums too, because are we getting better, or are things really the same? So I know we have the opportunity for more discussion, but that's just my experience at Bryant, and I'm just super impressed by all of you and how accomplished you are. And again, I apologize for the experience that you had, but we're going to learn from that. So thank you.
Kevin, I know we have prepared questions, but there's something I feel strongly about interjecting at this time.
Absolutely.
When I left Bryant, I was never coming back. May of 1976, I said, I am out of here. I am never coming back to Bryant. I am never coming back to Rhode Island. And then at one point, I never gave money, nothing. And I reached a point in my life where I could afford to give $100 here, $100 there. And I got this postcard that said, My Bryant. And there was not one face of color on there. And I said, well, wait a minute, how is this my Bryant? Because I'm not reflected on this. My one of my roommates was Chinese. She's not reflected on this. This is just unacceptable. And the activist, the militant in me when I was at Bryant came back to the surface. It's okay. I can't just complain. I have to do something about it. And I need for students to know that we all are here, which is one of the reasons I became re-engaged, so that the students weren't looking around saying, okay, there's nobody like us who's successful, who has graduated from this institution. So since 2003, you haven't been able to get rid of me. I'm back.
Well, thank you for re-engaging. Chanel, did you want to jump in?
No, Rita, that's a great point. I know that wasn't the talking point, Kevin, but like that's what fueled my involvement. I remember reaching out to Aliana, and Rita's right? Asian kids, like it was to President Gattel's point, right? It's ignorance and a little bit of blissful ignorance, right? But if you've only lived in Swampscott, Massachusetts, you don't. I'll never forget in Hall 15, I'm studying with a partner, and she was like, "I've never been this close to a Black person," right? Like I started backing up. I was like, "Well, I'm not your science project, right?" But I mean, like that was ignorance that was seeking to understand. But through that, I think that's where I realized, like, you know what, we have a role to play in this, and we have to get involved to make a difference. And Rita's right. I felt the exact same way, Rita. I'm not coming back to this place. I'm done. And I have friends that still won't come back. And frankly, Kevin, that's why Aliana approached you about something like this, like a David Tone, because there are so many alumni I know of my decade who are just like, nope, I don't want to have anything to do with that place because the wounds are still raw, right? I mean, I've been out of that place for 20 years, but you still, the trauma is real. But kudos to my colleagues, and I hope Ross, what you're doing will get communicated to past alum. Like, no, we want you to get back involved. We need you to get back involved. One of the main reasons we got involved, Aliana and I talk about it all the time. No one looked like us. They came back to career day or to hire, or like, didn't Black people go to school before us? Like, or brown people or Asian, anything other than Ed Santos, right? He was the only one we could refer to. So anyway, I hate to digress, but Rita, great point.
And Don Lopes is the person who got me coming. He probably got everybody coming back. He came and talked to 6 of us in the Black Student Organization about the importance of staying connected to your college. And when I became a trustee, one of the first things I did is I called him and reached out to him and told him it's his fault that I came back.
Well, we're certainly happy that you chose to re-engage and to come back and to give back to the university, not just monetarily, but just conversations like this are so important. And I think it does highlight a really important piece. You've all communicated very openly hostile situations and very uncomfortable situations, but you also had support systems, and some of those support systems are still here. Certainly, I know that you would not have stayed if it was all antagonistic. But I do want to mention I've been here for 6 years, and while we've had issues in those 6 years, we haven't had the issues of open antagonistic yelling out the window as frequently as you've all described. But again, we are not a perfect institution, and I think the past couple of years, with the advent of social media and news traveling so fast, we get tested time and time again. And so my question to the panel is, knowing about some of those events that took place really recently, we still have students who were here at the time. What is your perspective as a semi-outsider, right? So you are not here day to day, but you certainly follow some news from time to time about Bryant. How much would you say the institution has improved, and how much would you say things have not changed? And we can go in any order.
I will say that over the years that I've been re-engaged, and one other point, see, you give me a microphone, I go in my own direction. one of the very strongest benefits I got from Bryant was that confidence that I could conquer anything. And when I walked away from my corporate career to nothing lined up, and I was telling the SAA, Student Alumni Association, that yet last night, one of the first things I thought on my last day at work was, I'm a Bryant grad. I can do whatever I want to do. And I did. And I have. Yes, Janelle. Yes, yes, yes. From this experience. I've seen a lot of changes over the 17 years that I've been re-engaged with the university. So I've seen more. And when I say diversity, I mean more than looking at people from the outside and what does their skin look like. Diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, the majors that we have, the conversations that we're having, like this conversation. What concerns me, and which is why one of the reasons I like staying on the board as an advocate, is that every time I come back to campus, I would go to the multicultural area and just sit and talk to students, because I'm an alum, I can talk to current students. And I was hearing some of the same concerns from them that I had felt when I was a student at Bryant. Don't feel included, I don't feel that people respect me, etc. So I do have still a concern about that. I do believe we are making progress. I do believe we have a ways to go. Yet we're on the track to get us there.
Thank you.
Aliana. So, Kevin, and this is an indictment on Springfield College, right? But just, I wanted to share this piece. I don't know if you can see this, right? I'm a big news junkie, right? So this is Springfield College newspaper, the student newspaper from 1979. I don't know if you all can see that on YouTube, right? And it has a section that says, demands by Black students, right? This is 1979, right? And Springfield's not Bryant, but just humor me. We demand that 50 Blacks be accepted into the class of 1980, next year's freshman class. We demand that a Black man be immediately hired as a Black admissions officer to direct the year-round recruitment of Black students now on campus. We demand that a day be set aside during freshman orientation week sponsored by the Black students for the orientation of both Black and white students, right? Is this 1979 or this sounds like what we need to be doing right now, right? So when I came across this, it resonated with me so much because I feel like there's a lot that's been done, but there's so much more to do, right? And the one about orientation with Black students and white students, I thought that was profound. And more importantly, I feel like it resonates with what you're doing, what you're trying to do in your vision. So I just wanted to share this because once again, Bryant isn't unique. It's a microcosm of society. Whatever's going on in society will be going on at Bryant.
Just to add to that point is that it's really important that we treat injustice as injustice. If you do wrong, and you should be responsible for that. I don't care if you're on scholarship. I don't care if you're white, Black, brown, or green. I don't care how much money you give to the institution, because those same people then go and they lead our country. They go lead businesses and they lead organizations and they go rogue because they were never held accountable. Fine, whatever they do at home is fine. But when you come to university, you come to college, this is when you really start to get in line and really start to say, you know what, I got to do my work. I've got to study. I've got to talk to people with respect. I've got to work with people. And unfortunately, my experience at Bryant, I don't feel that when people were out of line, not everyone was treated the same way. But we do see that on a lot of the incidents that have happened in the recent news. We saw that in a lot of the incidents that have happened during Chanel's time and previously while I was there as well. And I think that's something that we need to really highlight, that things happen and not everyone is treated the same way. And that is not, that's not what I want to get out of a college or university. right? Because these people then go rogue and they fudge numbers when they go work for organizations. They treat people wrong, they lie, and then things happen. So I think Brian has an opportunity to really hold kids responsible, hold them accountable, whether it is in their work or it is in their private activities on campus, because they're still living on a campus. They have to abide by the rules. And a lot of them are just basic, simply treating people as humans, right? And having respect for one another. So that's probably what I would say about then and now. And I think that's something that I'm seeing consistent, that a lot of that, there's no fairness in the way people are being treated when things happen. And we see that then and we see it now. And I think that's something I would like to see be better.
I have to say, we're attentive to that. We're trying to address it. And again, I'm very new here, but, I've worked with Kevin. We did have an incident here, and part of what we made sure was that we followed up in a timely manner in that short period of time. And, my perspective, our perspective on this is, we could call it discipline of behavior that's not acceptable, not appropriate, but the educator in me says you're doing that student who you're, quote unquote, disciplining a favor, because they're learning from that experience in a relatively safe environment, and they're going to benefit from that experience when they leave Bryant. And I always felt that way as an educator, that, you give a student a low grade and you say, oh, that's going to hurt the student. And, my perspective is the student's going to learn from that experience and get better, and what we heard from all of you is you had experiences that we wish you hadn't had, but you really learned from that experience and you reflected on it. And, I think we have that opportunity when we're disciplined students for behavior that is just not appropriate and acceptable, that we act fast and say, we're going to discipline you. We're going to make sure you learn from this experience in a relatively safe environment, but it's towards your personal, professional development. That's what we're here for that. And we're going to work on it with you.
Thank you. I know you started to allude at some of the things that you'd like to see, Aliana and Rita and Chanel. I'll give you the opportunity to do the same. What would you like to see now that we've entered, I think, a new era where we are hyper-focused in making sure that we are creating an inclusive campus, not just a diverse one, right? We can certainly get students from all over. That might just simply be a function of giving them more money. But what about their experience on campus? What about preparing them for success? What about providing them mentorship while they're here? So why don't you speak a little bit to what you would like to see now that we've gotten the time to kind of catch our breaths a bit, especially during COVID, and plan for the long term under a new presidency and some fresh board committees.
I would love for us to be at the point where we don't need to have conversations like this, because this would be the exception rather than the rule. Where it truly is, and that's why I like the phrase diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is you've got a group of people who have different ideas, beliefs, views, what have you. Equity, you're treating everybody fairly. Inclusiveness, people feel comfortable. So I like this day of understanding, I think, is an absolute great start. I would love to see that we have follow up and follow through as a result of this. I happen to be a person who does not advocate for programs per se, because programs have a finite time period to them. I like things to be part of the culture, part of the fabric of the organization. So as we have more and more of these conversations to help people break down any barriers that are there, and where we just don't, where a person doesn't have to feel, oh, I stand out because I'm a little different, whatever that difference happens to be. This is the community that we're in, and that our students especially are prepared for a life outside of this wonderful bubble that we're in Smithfield, Rhode Island, that they're going to meet people who look like us and others and behave like us and others out there in the world, and be able to communicate, to lead, to understand and respect each other. Something that was said earlier made me think of my roommate in my senior year. I ended up with a single room because when we moved in, my roommate's mother was shocked to see me and my parents. And she immediately got her daughter transferred to another room. I would like us to be at the point where things like that don't happen anymore. I'll yield because I could go on and on and on, and we have a few minutes left.
So the question was, what do we want to see, or where do we want to go? What's the question?
The question is, what do you want to see?
I would love, and I talk about this all the time, I would love to see all of the alumni of color come back to campus and feel that this is their campus. When we did that reunion, homecoming a few years ago, Kevin, I was just so happy to see so many of them. A lot of my friends only come back to campus because of me. Some of them are on the chat right now because of me. And I want them to go to Bryant because they went to Bryant too. And I don't want to be that person for them. I want them to feel like this is their home and they had experiences here too. And I speak to a lot of them outside of Bryant, but I want them to come back. I want them to feel home. I want them to get involved and give back, because I feel like it's a disservice to the Bryant students not to see us, because they just think, oh, there's only a few of us on campus. This is the world. It's like, no, there's a lot of us. We're mighty. And we have a lot to offer. And it's unfortunate that the students at Bryant don't get benefit from that. And so I would love to see us all come back and be able to come back regularly at Bryant and feel comfortable there and walk through that arch that we avoided for 4 years and do it as much as we want. So, yeah.
I think Aliana and Rita nailed it. I mean, look, Bryant's not a utopia, right? I mean, we can't hide from society. What I loved about Bryant was that it was a closed campus and we do have a little bit of control, right? But Ross can't make people treat people equitably, right? But what we can do is prepare people for the future in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And I think having a curriculum that's reflective of that, having staff that's reflective of that, having programs like Springfield asked for in 1979, that is an orientation for diversity and inclusion. And as I reflect back and I think about, I saw one of my teachers and people who was a supporter while I was at Bryant, Judy McDonald, right? Kevin's right. They put 50 to 60 people on campus. They didn't prepare us and they didn't prepare the campus, right? Like it does have to require diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? That's programming, that's funding, that's staff, right? I mean, I had some great people like Bill Phillips, who's no longer there. I mean, Dr. Conti, Professor Conti. I mean, great coaches, but those were few and far between. A lot of people didn't have those relationships, right? So really putting the programs in place to support all kids, whether they're children of color, whether they're Asian, they're African, they're white, or they're from across the country, across the world. Just being more inclusive, and that requires a commitment. And I think if we make that commitment, I've constantly seen Bryant become the school that I wanted to attend, and I think we'll get there.
Thank you. President Cattell, do you have any thoughts on where you'd like to go? I know you've got a vision for the future.
Yeah. No. I was really taken by the suggestions made by the panelists, and I love the image of people coming back for homecoming and walking through the archway together, and sharing their experience, and making a commitment to help us, improve Bryant and work together and make it known for its commitment to improving itself and being, more of a model, reflective of, as Chanel says, of the society and, how society could get better. I think there's a lot of benefit. I truly do, by having a lot of conversations and having people learn how to have conversations about a range of issues. I think we have to work on opportunities to have of people with different backgrounds, different experiences to come together. A more diverse range of activities and events that students can get involved with in the arts, culture, academic seminars. I know when I was an undergraduate, the seminars that brought in people with very different opinions, with different backgrounds themselves, and almost making it a requirement. I know that's dangerous for students to attend those and to listen and learn and engage. Could be really beneficial. Athletics provides a huge opportunity for people to get together, but let's think about how we could use that vehicle more effectively. So Chanel, your experience and other students of color, their experience as student athletes, and how we could build on the strengths of that programs. I really do think that there's an opportunity there. And I know our faculty are committed to diversity, equity, inclusion on this issue. I'm sure Rita and Kevin and their committees will work on that, as will Provost Solmacy. So, I think, we want to make these conversations stimulating and a learning experience for our students. And I think we could do that, but we have to realize, we have to have a true commitment to that. And as Rita says, and I agree with you, Rita, it has to become part of our culture. And I think it becomes part of our culture by having leaders like alums who come back, influence that culture. So I think we have to continue to support that. And these events, these days of understanding, it is important for people to have these conversations, particularly at this point in time for Bryant, but even more importantly for the world around Bryant, because, it's too much division, too much rhetoric, and not enough, let's hear about your experience. Let's, have empathy for what you went through and reflect on how others reacted at that time and what we could learn from it and how we're going to get better. So, that takes time, that takes commitment, that takes, a culture and an organization that's committed to it. And I think we can make a lot of progress on that. And I've already started to do that. I'm an optimist, but I think we have to be optimistic, or else we're going to stay in a bad place, and we don't want to be there as a society. So I think we have a lot of reasons to be optimistic at Bryant. We don't want to fool ourselves at the same time. We want to be positive, that Bryant spirit, that Bryant community, say, we could do this, and this is something we're committed to, and we're going to get it done. And I don't want to belittle it or make it sloganish, just a slogan. But, I think if we commit the same type of energy and effort to this as we've done other things at Bryant, we can make some good progress.
Awesome. We've got about 15 minutes left, so I'll make these questions appropriate, but it seems like we've pivoted towards that commitment to the future. And I've been able to speak with Chanel, with Aliana, and certainly with Rita about some of the ideas that we've been kicking around at the cabinet level, some of the ideas that I've brought to the university, and certainly some of the ideas that the university community has shared with me. So many of those ideas are from the community, from faculty, from staff, from students, and from alumni. Based on those conversations, what do you think? What is your outlook? President Gattel has mentioned that he's an optimist. Are you optimistic about where we are headed as a university?
I'm hopeful. I think your position is an amazing sign and an amazing right direction. And I think the fact that resources are still being moved forward. So often corporations, they sign these pledges and all these things, and it's just words. Maybe they do a commercial, but we're starting to see action happen, right? We're actually starting to see results of things happening, and culture doesn't shift, right, by doing a YouTube live, right? And so, but the fact that there's a position like yours at Bryant, the fact that you had the full day of amazing programs that you did, and these make me hopeful, right? Because I'm starting to see not only things happening, but there's being money put to it, there's being effort put to it, there's being prioritized. It's not just, we're going to do this new initiative and then it's going to die down. It's no, it's going to keep spinning and moving in different facets. So I'm hopeful for that. So yeah, I do think we are heading in the right direction, and what better time than now? Let's continue with that momentum and not lose that. Steve.
Sure. Chanel, Rita, I actually want you to respond last because you have a hand in moving us forward. So I'll ask Chanel to respond, and then I'll ask you. So Chanel, your thoughts? think you might be frozen a bit.
That question weeks ago. Am I?
Okay, now you're good. I think you're.
What about now? Yeah. I'm trying to figure out the right way to answer that question, because I repeat, but Bryant is a reflection of society, right? And society has a lot of work to do. So, am I optimistic of what can come with Ross's leadership and with your position, Kevin? Absolutely, but it's not going to be easy, right? But I'd be lying if I didn't say something like this doesn't make me feel positive about the future. But it's not going to be easy, right? We're going to have to have a lot more of these. We're going to have to commit to really making change. But if we do commit, and Bryant students will be the future leaders of the world, right? I mean, we have the opportunity to truly shape the future. And if we make that commitment, we can shape the future, and it can be the future that we want to see. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be easy. And Lord knows the impact of November 3rd is going to have a big impact on it too. But I'm optimistic in the leadership we have at Bryant and what you're committed to doing.
Thank you. Rita, what are your thoughts?
I am both hopeful and optimistic. One of the things my parents taught me is whenever you see any kind of issue, challenge, or problem, figure it out. And so I also believe that when I see an issue, challenge, or problem, focus on the solution and get in the position where I can do something about it. I'm not a person who sits back and complains about, oh my goodness, this, that, and the next thing. Not that that's what's happening here. I'm giving a framework. And so when the opportunity came up to be on the board, at first I was going to say no. It was my last day at work. I was feeling frustrated. The phone rang. It was Ron Makeley recruiting me to be on the board. And I was going to say no because I thought you had to be old and you had to be rich and you had to be male to be on a board. I'm thinking, how much is this thing going to cost me to do? And then I got a grip and said, let me do this. Let me just see how this is going to go. And after being on the board, one of the things that I started doing is I compared every board that I've been on since this to Bryant board when it comes to how the board functions and how the board cares about the university being a continuing institution. And then an opportunity came up to be on the Alumni Council. I was only going to do that for one term. Well, we see we're on year 8 and now reeling in. And I was off the board while I was on the Alumni Council, and the opportunity came back to be on the board again. And my answer was, as long as I can stay on the Alumni Council too. Because what I see here is a cohesion where we've got 2 strong constituents. The alumni of the university, 50,000 strong who we are. The Board of Trustees, 2/3 approximately of whom are alumni of this university. Together, working with the entire community, we can make change. And that's another reason why I was on the presidential search committee. I have to be a part of the solution. I have to be a part of the process because I too talk to others and see that there is this need. So I am not only hopeful and optimistic, I am very encouraged, and I want to encourage others to make sure your voice is heard. A number of people have reached out to me just in the past few months, and we've had dialogue back and forth. So yes, I'm accessible. The board is accessible. Our alumni association is accessible. Our faculty, staff, students. We've got a great support network. We've got a great infrastructure that we can really take and build on and leverage and make Bryant not just a reflection of society, but the example for society to follow.
Thank you, Rita. And I am excited. I'm asking you all questions, but I'll answer my own question. I'm excited to do this work, and I'm excited for what's to come. And I'm certainly, very privileged to be in the spaces that I am now. I am not an alumni of the university, but I have seen the power of a Bryant education and Bryant experiences. And so that's why, I chose to stay at this university and chose to do this work. Before we wrap up, I want to offer Ross a few words, but first let me thank the panel for this amazing discussion. And I know that, again, you all currently and historically have engaged with the university, and you will continue to do that. So we would love to have you back for conversations in the future, panels. There are certainly people in the comments that, and folks who have reached out to me on my phone who want me to connect you all for some of the great work that we're doing. And before President Gattel shares some thoughts, I'd like to quickly just thank everybody who's in attendance and everyone who was able to hear the thoughts provided tonight. We certainly need more discussion at the university, and that's what will give us the power to create the community that we all want to live, learn, teach, and work in, especially in what seems to be the most polarizing political environment in a generation. It's important to remember how much we have in common, while also recognizing that our differences make us unique and special, and certainly not inferior or less worthy. And I just want to highlight a piece of a message that I shared with the university in writing in the program book. And that's, conversations alone will not change our society, but we can't begin to act without advancing our own knowledge and understanding. And I hope today, the Day of Understanding, will begin to provide people just more stopping points along their journey and more opportunities to create action. I want folks to be on the lookout for future community conversations. They will not always be in this format, but we certainly want to engage. Actually, we want to engage more so with the folks who are in attendance, and future conversations will have that ability. A huge shout out to my team in the Office of Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Melanie, Carolina, Justin, Janai, and Via, who worked very hard on the Day of Understanding. And there are a bunch of community members who jumped in, a ton of faculty, staff, students, and alumni who have participated in the day. And I couldn't be happier with the day with the way that this turned out. And I want to offer now President Gattel a few minutes to offer some thoughts and some closing remarks on Bryant's future.
Okay, well, first I want to thank you, Kevin, for your leadership of this Day of Understanding and this panel, and for everything you bring to Bryant University. You are a tremendous resource for the institution, and I'm committed to working with you. And Rita mentioned, trustees being accessible. I want to add that the full cabinet is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and working on this issue. And we are all accessible, and Kevin's part of that cabinet, and we do have discussions about these issues on a regular basis. So this is not just about President Gattel. It's really a Bryant community. It's cabinet, it's faculty and staff. And, since I've joined this institution, I recognize that one of the main strengths of this institution are alumni and their commitment to the institution. And I also see that's a product also. So as alum and seeing what you have accomplished and hearing about your experience and how you tried to benefit from that experience, and now we're able to reflect on it and turn it around to help the institution. That speaks a lot to you as individuals. It speaks a lot to our institutions. And, I just want to reiterate that we've made some progress. We have a long way to go. And it's going to be hard work, but it's going to be important work. And, I'm convinced it's going to be rewarding work for all of us. So let's, try to continue on this path. Let's continue to communicate. Let's continue to support each other, but also call each other out if we're not doing things that we think we should be doing, and challenging each other to do better, and recognizing when we're good and when we're not so good is really important. And, I want to thank the panelists again, and you, Kevin, for organizing this. I've learned a lot, and really enjoyed the discussion. I have to be honest. This has been a nice session. I could do this all night, but I know we have other things to do. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
We'll be looking forward to when we can have a regular homecoming and hopefully welcome everyone back. And let's do another one of those celebrations. Again, thank you everyone who attended tonight. We do actually have 2 other programs that are in the program book that are happening. One just started at 7, and there's one that I believe will start in a little while. But again, thank you to the alumni and parent engagement team for providing technical support. Have a good night, everyone.